Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about the 5 books that I read in the month of July. It was a very kind of slower reading month for me. I feel like this entire summer has been a very slow reading summer for me, which is so odd. We've been traveling, there's been a ton of things to watch on TV, and therefore I just haven't been consuming as many books as I normally do. And I'm sad about that, so I'm hoping to turn that around this coming month in August. But I have 5 books to chat with you about, so let's go ahead and jump on into them. First, we have The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. This was a part of my most anticipated reads reading vlog, which I will put up here, so if you have not checked that out, definitely be sure to. Funnily enough, my 4 most anticipated reads for 2024 were all thrillers, so they're all condensed in that video, but I read this in the month of July, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I think out of the 4 now Lucy Foley thrillers that I've read, I honestly think this might be my favorite. I do need to go back and reread the guest list. To be fair, I think I need to go back and reread a lot of books that I initially rated 5 stars back when I got right back into reading, because I definitely feel like I would adjust my ratings now. But this was so good. Definitely one of my top thrillers from Lucy Foley. I absolutely adore the way she writes thrillers. You are following multiple POVs, and when I say multiple, it's like 5 or 6 people, but it's not difficult to follow because the story just kind of seamlessly goes with each person you're following. Everything always ends on a cliffhanger. The chapters are super short, and it's just such an easy reading journey, and that's why I think I love her thrillers so much. So The Midnight Feast, like I said, follows a ton of different people, but you're essentially following all of these people at this resort, and this is a very like all-inclusive, only the rich go to this resort, and it is opening. It's the opening weekend. So you're following like the owner, the owner's husband, someone that works there, someone that's staying there, and there's a couple other point of views tossed in and out, kind of like people on the boat that find the dead body. There's always a dead body at the beginning, and then you take the whole story to figure out what happened. But I really liked this one a lot because I felt like it had kind of a more spooky element to it. If you haven't picked this one up yet and you are planning to, I would save this as like one of your October spooky kind of like Halloween reads, because I feel like it's a really great kind of spooky thriller. But I loved the way this one ended. I felt like I like the way it started, I like the way it went, and I like the way it ended, but I really do like the way this one ended, because I feel like sometimes with any thriller or any horror, the ending always bothers me, but this one really just tied everything together. It was well done, very well done. I think this is probably going to take my top spot in my favorite Lucy Foley, because this one was so good. 4 stars. Absolutely adored this one. Up next, I read my book of the month. This was actually my book of the month for June. I got kind of behind on reading book of the months because I was doing so many different reading vlogs. But this is A Talent for Murder by Peter Swanson. This is, I know it's the 3rd in a series, but it wasn't advertised as a part of a series at book of the month. And that really drove me nuts, because I feel like if it would have been advertised and also had like kind of the same name, because the first 2 books followed the same name, I would have been better, although you can read this alone. Ultimately, and very sadly, I gave this 2.5 stars. I know a lot of people will be like, oh, you would rate it higher if you had read the other 2 books. And maybe I would have, and I know I spoiled some things for myself by reading this one first, because I know there's characters from the first 2 books that make appearances. But I just felt like this thriller was so meh. So in the first part of this book, you're following Martha. Martha highly suspects that her husband is a serial killer. Basically, the way she figures it is he comes home with like a speck of blood on the back of his shirt, and he travels for work, and for some reason she decides to go on this massive deep dive, which, like, wouldn't we all, of like all the places he's been and like the homicides in that area at the time he was there, and things are starting to add up. So she highly suspects he's a serial killer, and so she reaches out to an old friend named Lily, who kind of got her out of an abusive relationship when she was in college. And Lily is very like strong, female, independent, willing to help. So she wants to help Martha. So she steps in and tries to kind of tail Martha's husband, Alan, to see what's going on. And that's kind of the story you're following. And it's divvied up into 2 parts. The first part was really good, and I felt like as a standalone, it would have been really fun because the story went really quickly. But then the second and third parts just absolutely dragged on, and I felt like we were getting the same information repeated at us over and over, and it wasn't as fast-paced as I like my thrillers to be. And I was definitely sad because obviously when I started reading this, I popped it into Goodreads, and it was like what did it say? Henry Kimball #3. And I was like, okay, so this is a part of a series, but it can be a standalone. So I was like, obviously the first 2 books are really, really good. Everyone really enjoys them, but I just couldn't get with this one. It just wasn't my jam. And by the time I do go back to read like the first and second books, which I do plan to because they were on my wish list, I'm sure I'll have forgotten most of the information I learned in this book. So 2.5. Next, for a reading vlog that is actually coming out this Friday, so be on the lookout for that, I read Dial A For Aunties. This is by Jessie Q. Sutanto. I read Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers earlier this year or late last year, and I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the writing. So I had the second book of this and I didn't realize it was the second book in this series, so went and picked up the first, so I have both of them. And this was a solid 3-star for me. It is a very, very, very cozy mystery. You are following Madeline Chan, who goes on this like blind date that her mom set up for her, and he ends up being like just gross. And he comes onto her, and in like self-defense, he comes onto her aggressively. In self-defense, she ends up killing him, puts him in her trunk, drives home, shows her mom. Her mom's like, wow, you're so respectful for covering his face. Like, okay. And then her 4 aunts come together, or 3 aunts and her mom come together and help to cover up this murder. And it is a very cozy, cozy mystery because all 4 of them work, or 5 of them work in the wedding industry, and they have a wedding they need to attend to, so the body comes along with them. And it's a very fun, like, quirky, like, you have to think, like, you have to suspend your disbelief for sure when reading this, but it is a very fun, cozy mystery. The murder's out of the way initially, and then it's just kind of fun following them around. You do find that at the place that they go for the wedding that they're taking care of, that Madeline sees a long-time old boyfriend, and so she's trying to keep this secret from him as well. And it's a fun, cozy time. I will say I do like Vera Wong's better, and that's also a cozy mystery, but this is fun. And like I said, I also do have the second one, which is 4 Aunties in a Wedding, and because I have it, I'll probably read it, but this isn't like a series I think I'm gonna be obsessed with the way I was with Finlay Donovan. I think Finlay Donovan is probably my favorite cozy mystery series I've read, but this is still a fun time. It's still a good experience, and I think if you have it on your TBR shelf, just pick it up if you're in the mood for something fun and quirky and cozy. And then next, for that same vlog, I read a horror book. I read The Children on the Hill by Jennifer McMahon. This had been on my TBR for a very long time, and I was really excited to get to this because I was so like loved the premise of this, and I ended up giving it a 3.75. I rounded it up to a 4 because the entire first 90% of this book was everything I love. I also feel like I found a new horror trope I like in this book, which is like urban legends. Love a good urban legend. So in this book, we're following 2 different timelines. We're following 1978 and 2019. In 1978, we're following Violet, or Vi, and she lives with her brother and her grandma, and her grandma is kind of like the director of this psychiatric institution. So she's kind of gone all day, and her brother are homeschooled, but they just like stay in the house. They're very, very intelligent. They don't really go out into the town or anything, and if they do, people just know them as kiddos that keep to themselves, but they do these things where they go on like monster hunts because they're obsessed with monsters and urban legends, and it's just like, I don't know, reading that is really, really fun. And then one day their grandma brings home a little girl from the psychiatric unit, I guess, the inn, and says she's gonna be staying here for a while we kind of like rehabilitate her. And Vi thinks that's weird because they don't usually take kids, so that kind of becomes a whole mystery. And then 2019, we're following Lizzie, who is Vi, renamed, and she is the host of like this really popular monsters podcast because that love for monsters that she had as a kid carried on into adulthood. So she goes to all these places where all these people have these urban legends to do a podcast on the monsters of the town. And basically what it says at the synopsis is what happens. It says Lizzie's on her way to Vermont, where a young girl has been abducted and the town is in an uproar over a possible monster sighting. Lizzie is determined to hunt it down because she knows better than anyone that monsters are real, and one of them is her very own sister. So that kind of just like condenses that. And like I said, the first 90% of this book was amazing. I loved both timelines. I do think I liked the more present one, the 2019 one, more because I loved, like I said, the urban legends were so fun to read about. I really enjoyed that. But the ending was, like I said, with horror and thrillers, sometimes if an ending is really bad, it really knocks it out for me. And the ending of this, not that it was bad, I feel like there's probably an audience out there of people that are going to enjoy this ending, but I did not like it. And I feel like that really bogged down the book for me because I was having such a good time and then it all went away. So The Children on the Hill, I am going to give this author another chance though because I do really like the way she wrote everything else. It was amazing. So Children on the Hill. Last but not least, I read A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. This is actually the third adult thriller that I've read by Kate Alice Marshall, and of the three, I will say it is the best. This book does get published next year. It gets published on February 4th, so I do want to thank NetGalley for giving me an early copy of this. I do foresee it also because I think both of the Kate Alice Marshalls that I have read, the adult thrillers, have been Book of the Month books, so I definitely foresee it becoming a Book of the Month book in February. And I will say, of the three, it was my favorite. The other two were very, like, mediocre thrillers for me. I do have a YA horror, I think, from Kate Alice Marshall that I've heard is really, really good, so I'm, like, itching to read that. I probably should read that soon. But in this one, we are following Theo, and Theo is going with her, like, fresh fiance, and by fresh fiance I mean they met like 3 months ago, are engaged, to go see his very rich family at the Dalton estate. And she goes to this estate and it's like in a snowbanked area where like they kind of are far away from civilization, so like once she's on the estate she can't exactly leave, and when she gets there she realizes that like a lot of the things she's seeing are things from her past that she's remembering because she's kind of blacked out most of her past because she has a very traumatic past. And so she's like, this place looks really familiar. And so things start to get a little bit eerie in that sense. And basically, to sum it up, she ends up going to this abandoned cabin that everyone's like, oh, this cabin's abandoned, don't go there, it's dangerous, and finds a picture of herself when she was a kid there. So things are a little spooky. And like I said, this was definitely the best of the three thrillers that I've read from Kate Alice Marshall. I feel like it was definitely more developed. The end had so many twists and turns. I saw a couple of them coming, but then it just got like really, really twisty, and it was really fun to follow the very, like, if you like reading about like rich people drama, I definitely think you'll enjoy this thriller. It was a good time. And like I said, it comes out February 4th, and also I'm pretty sure Book of the Month is probably going to have it as an option, so look out for that. But I did enjoy it, and I felt like it was a really fun time, especially for a thriller. Short chapters, easy to read, quick, lots of twists. And those are the 5 books that I read in the month of July. I'm really gonna try to read a lot more this month. I've already finished one book, which is exciting. I read it mostly towards the end of July, finished it on August 1st, but like still. So hopefully I can get a lot more books done this month for you guys, but definitely be sure to check out my most anticipated reads vlog, and then the vlog coming out this Friday as well, especially if you like reading videos and reading vlogs. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye guys.